So today is budgeting day, which is something I'm super excited about. I really love budgeting and stuff about finance in general. It's just something I find really interesting. I budget every month and I'm always interested in people's personal finance videos and their budget with me videos. So I wanted to share what I'm doing right now, currently using Google Sheets method. I'm still very much a beginner on budgeting and finance. It's all very beginner level knowledge at this point, but it's something I'm really passionate about and something that I don't feel like is a chore or something that's really boring to do. Personal finance, again, is very personal, so I'm still trying to figure out how I want to tailor my budgeting to make it better suit how our lifestyle is and how my brain works and all that sort of stuff. I wanted to share my setup and how I'm closing out February, how I'm setting up for March, and talk about what has worked for me in the past and what hasn't worked, and what I'm currently doing and what I'm thinking of doing in the future to kind of make things a little bit easier and make more sense to me. My interest in personal finance is fairly new. I had tried cash envelope budgeting a long time ago just because I saw a video about it and it looked like a cute way to manage my money, but it really wasn't a system that worked for me. I would always get behind because I would be too lazy or I didn't have enough time to go to the bank and to stuff everything and write everything down. All that was a little too much. And that was my last attempt at any serious budgeting up until about 1 to 2 years ago when I started really getting serious about it and trial and erroring different systems, and I think I found one that makes sense for me. And it may not work for a lot of people, the method that I'm going to be sharing. It may seem tedious or too high maintenance, blah blah blah, but for me this works and I just wanted to share it. And I know it's not a perfect system, so I'm always open to any advice or tips, things like that. And with all that being said, we'll switch over to the computer and we'll do a walkthrough of my budget. So this is how I budget every month. It's actually the free monthly budget template that's on Google Sheets, and I found someone on YouTube. I'll link it below. It shows how they have adapted the Google Sheet to be more of like a YNAB style of budgeting. And how I used to do it was physical bi-weekly budget sheets where I would write down our income, all of our expenses, all of the transactions that we made for a whole 2 weeks, and calculate everything we made, everything we spent, and see what the difference was, and then trying to roll over stuff, blah, blah, blah. Everything was all written. While it did help me get a better sense of how we spend and make it a little bit more real, I do want to transition more into digital. I tried Monarch Money and Copilot before. I just didn't really like the budgeting system. It just couldn't make sense for me. I know a lot of people love it and it's totally valid, but I just couldn't make it work with YNAB. I gave myself ample time to try everything. I maxed out on the free trial just to see if it's something that would work for me, but it just took too long for me to see transactions or to see my paycheck in there. And whenever I get paid, I want to budget right away, and it was just kind of throwing things off. And also, it's more of a simple budgeting tool, I feel like. Like, it doesn't include our investments and net worth tracking and all of that stuff. I also didn't want to be spending money on a budgeting app, especially if it can't just be a one-time purchase and it's being charged to my card every month or every year. So essentially, I got a headache from trying all those different budgeting tools. So I just wanted to start fresh with a free option. And this is what I've settled on. With this template, you would make a sample budget and then you would copy that for subsequent months. And that'll help you avoid entering things in like your fixed expenses and all your bills every single time. So here is the total of our fixed expenses every month. And this amount will carry over to every single budget because it's on the master copy. Everything else is variable expenses or things that we want to put towards savings. These are actually all at zero right now because, again, I mentioned I wanted to start fresh. So I've had a whole month to see how we spend, track our transactions, and I'm going to go back in and edit these based on how we spent last month. On the side here, we have income. Our income is generally the same amount, but it can vary by a few $100s here and there. So we just leave it blank and then we'll just add it to each month. Going to the transactions sheet. So this is how I put in everything that we spend as we spend it. So instead of the way I was doing it before, I would have to go back to statements, go through each line item and write that down and then add everything up. So with this method, I can just type it in and it's a little bit easier because I can do it on the go on my phone, and so can my boyfriend. And for example, if we go grocery shopping and I put in the dates, I'll put how much we spent and then a little description if we need it, and then we put it into groceries. It will automatically populate in the summary tab right here. And again, it says negative right here because in this sample budget sheet, it doesn't have any amount allotted for groceries. So let's say I allotted 200 for groceries, then it would say that I have a surplus of 160, so that's how much I have left over. So it's kind of like a digital cash envelope system. And like I mentioned before, I did try cash envelopes, but nowadays, like, we don't use cash at all, so it just doesn't make sense for us to do physical cash stuffing. But this is how I can digitally keep track of all of our expenses and do the cash envelope method in a digital way, where I can predetermine how much I want to spend in each category for the month, and then I can keep track of it as the days go by and as I remove from those digital envelopes. So I actually changed the amount of my fixed expenses slightly just because we changed some subscription things around. So this is actually the true total, 4,183. And that'll be right there, and then it should copy over to all the new budgets. So looking at February, this is my first full month of doing it. So I'm just gonna evaluate how we did and what I want to try moving forward next month with this same template. We can see in the summary here that we probably overspent, and we did have a lot of big expenses this month, but also we were transitioning to this new style of budgeting. And I did leave a cushion in our bank account just in case there was overspending, that way we're covered. Looking here, you can see all the amounts that I've allotted for all of our different categories. And then this column shows how much we actually spent in each one of those, and then the difference. So we mainly just went over on our fixed expenses. Probably the electric or something was a little bit higher than we were expecting, and 2 cents over on the groceries. We have leftovers in a lot of the other ones. So I've been having trouble reconciling credit card payments or credit card debt or credit card spending. And I had that issue with YNAB as well. It just like wasn't clicking in my brain. And now it has. So there's gonna be a few changes I'll make moving forward. But what I had been doing in the past was like double subtracting things. So for example, if we'd spend $40 on food, I would put that as a transaction, and then I would also put minus 40 for whatever we were paying back towards the credit card. So then that would be 80 instead of 40, because technically we just borrowed $40 from the credit card, but I had money in my account to pay that off right away. And rather than just evening that out and just take away the 40, I was taking away 80. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's kind of making sense in my head now. So moving forward, whenever we use the credit cards to pay for something, we'll just pay it off right away. That way I have a better handle on how we're spending things and how much is going on the credit card, make sure it's not accumulating. So this is the transaction sheet, and I was just realizing that we haven't used the income side to input the income. I had just been putting it on the summary sheet, but this is where you would type in how much you make each week or every other week or monthly. And then this is where we would track our expenses. So every day, if there was something that we spent money on or any bills that were paid, we would enter it here. As you can see here, I have rent divided by 4 just because our rent is really high. So I figure that if we divide our rent into 4, so weekly payments, that'll ensure that we have enough by the end of the month to cover that bill. And now we have our budget for the month of March. So I have the dates up here. For budgeting, I like to use what money we already have in our account. So rather than just forecasting what we'll make, I like to start on a payday. So we'll be getting paid on the 27th, and that money will be carried over to cover our first week of March, if that makes sense. And then our last day on this budget is March 26th, because on the 27th of March we get paid, and that money will go towards the first week of April. For the month of March, I've actually edited my cash envelope amounts for each category. So we've got the 300 for groceries, 400 for Costco, 150 for household, so on and so on. Usually for personal spending, I'll allot 180 for me and my boyfriend for the entire month. But it's kind of like a sinking fund-ish thing. So we have money that has been rolled over and rolled over, and that's why it's higher than 180 for both of ours. I did want to add for taxes because we're planning on doing that this month. So I honestly don't know about taxes. Last time I owed a lot of money, but I think I adjusted however much I'm withholding so that hopefully I don't have to pay so much. So let's do, I don't know, does 3,000 sound right? I don't know. We're just gonna leave it at that for now. Again, I am really interested in personal finance, but when it comes to taxes and stuff like that, that's not so fun. But that's only a big expense that I'm anticipating for this month. I do want to go over here to input the income for the start of the month, because the paycheck that we receive on the 27th will cover us for the first week of March. So we got 2 paychecks to input. And this will be my first one, and then this one. Okay, so that should be populated over here. So I actually forgot to put the plan income for the month, so I'm going to enter that now. So we'll do that and that. And for my other job, I don't like to put that I'm going to expect a certain amount because the hours can vary like tremendously. So I'm just going to leave it at 0, and whatever I make, I'll just input in the transactions and it'll be extra income. As you can see here, my planned expenses are about 13,000 this month. Hopefully it doesn't end up being that much. A lot of it goes towards our rent, car payments, insurance, and then how much we transfer into our savings, into our investments. And then our planned income is around 9,000. And again, I made a little extra on my other job, so hopefully it'll be a little bit higher than that. So that's basically it for this video. It kind of felt a little disorganized, so I'm sorry about that. I'm getting used to doing the recording on the computer and talking to the phone. And I'm also not used to talking at all while I'm budgeting. I'm usually super focused and like stressing and clenching my jaw and grinding my teeth and all that stuff. It's gonna take a little bit of adjusting doing this monthly budgeting just because I'm so used to bi-weekly. But the past month hasn't been horrible. I didn't have that much of a headache inputting my transactions. This will be my budget for the foreseeable future until I grow out of it or find something that's a better free alternative. Hopefully you took a little bit of something from this, or you have something to give to me as constructive criticism or some advice on how I can budget better. I really love learning about new things in personal finance and budgeting, so all the different strategies and stuff you can feel free to throw at me. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.